About the rebellion you never heard of, the anti-communist Hungarian uprising of 1956. When I came back to the city, they were already planning the armed resistance. Everyone was talking about the armed resistance and that after the first sound of gunshot, the Americans will be here to aid us, with tanks and airplanes. Then we heard the radio that the first shots have been fired in Budapest. Artillery, in fact. The Russian communists were holding Budapest under siege. You could hear the rounds being fired in the broadcast behind the voice of the radio host. The people on the street were watching the skies to see when the American planes would arrive. But it was only the November grey clouds that were being blown by the Nordic icy winds. The planes were nowhere to be found. The first day everyone was waving weapons around, and those who didn't have one demanded that we give them one. The first day the city was like a campground overflowing with the spirit of fighting, a camp of freedom fighters, where everyone was ready for anything just so they can keep the freedom they tasted, even if just for a while. Second day the streets were a bit silent and the faces were gloomy. The Russians arrived to Budapest. America didn't move a finger. Rumors got wind, and the news was out how many people were executed by the communists, how many thousands were forced into cattle wagons and sent off to foreign land. That the secret police got reorganized and they were going door to door arresting the people who took part in the gunfights. The third day, only we remained. Young factory workers, us, former communists, a couple of hundreds of students and children, and a few dozen old men in rags, who once were aristocrats. The rest, the citizens, the townies, the people, that thousand-faced, pasty, languid crowd that sat inside the basement, watched from the basement windows what will the future bring for them. Freedom, at the cost of our blood, or continued occupation over our trampled corpses. Some even shouted at us from the windows, "Throw away your weapons, you idiots! Don't anger the Russians further. We will be the ones who will have to suffer it." Everyone just started blaming the Americans, even us who were fighting. Shame it didn't occur to anyone. If only 2 million Hungarian men would have stood our ground, grabbed our weapons, pickaxes, scythes, hammers, whatever we had, we could have stitched the commies in sacks and thrown them over the Carpathians. And then they came, the Russians, with tanks and on foot. And the world was not prepared for the fights that ensued. Around 400 we were who faced them. 400 in a city of 30,000 men. But they had to rout us out and wipe us out one by one. Like feral wolves we fought. The most beautiful and amazing scenes ensued. I have seen things that this peace-loving, self-loathing, chain-licking world would never believe. Snotty children with self-made Molotov cocktails climbing on top of flaming tanks. Old men with collapsed knees and crowbars in their hands attacking the chain tracks. Bleeding to death from their wounds yet still jerking the chains of the tanks to their final breath. Until they forced the terrible beasts of steel to stop. Even then, their corpses were hanging onto them like ticks on a dog's neck. Heroes? We had no shortage of heroes. It was the people that was missing behind of them.